Hello and welcome to episode 19 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. I'm your host, Rick Doherty. Last week, Sarah from Seattle and I started a conversation for people planning on visiting Disneyland for the first time. If you're a Walt Disney World veteran and your first Disneyland trip is limited by time, we're telling you which attractions are must-dos and which ones can be skipped. In last week's episode, Sarah and I discussed Main Street USA, Adventureland, New Orleans Square, Critter Country, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and Frontierland. Go back and check out that episode if you missed it. Today, we'll cover Fantasyland and Tomorrowland. Please like, subscribe, and comment to really help the show, especially if you agree or disagree with us on any of these decisions. Let us know. I'm also an authorized Disney travel planner with Ear to There Travel. I also have a lot of experience with Universal Orlando Resort and many other vacation destinations. My services are always 100% free to you. Contact me at rick@eartotheretravel.com, rick@eartotheretravel.com, or 727-507-3123, 727-507-3123. A $200 deposit can lock down your next Disney trip. We're going to continue our talk by moving to Fantasyland, which actually has a lot of rides. The first one to discuss today is Pinocchio's Daring Journey. Sarah, if you're a Walt Disney World vet and you're at Disneyland for the first time, should you make sure to experience this?
I would say must do because it also usually has a really short line, so you can get on it really fast.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Now I am going to sound dumb because I still have Snow White's Scary Adventure written down, and I know that they have changed the name of the ride, and just off the top of my head, it is escaping me.
Snow White's Enchanted Journey, I think. Because I still call it Snow White's Scary Adventures.
That sounds like something that Disney would name the new Snow White ride. They've made some changes. Snow White's Scary Adventure used to be at Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World. It is not anymore. And then the version of Snow White's Scary Adventure at Disneyland during the closure went through a refurbishment that changed some things around a little bit because kids were getting really scared on it, and it's a Fantasyland ride. It is kind of for kids, so if too many kids were getting scared, it does certainly make sense. So Sarah, what do you think? Is this a must-do for somebody who is a Walt Disney World veteran?
I would say with the new overlay, yes. Because that one also, I don't know now with the new overlay how long the ride is, or the line is, but like Pinocchio, that one usually has a really short line as well.
I think you have to do it because, like you said, it's brand new for all intents and purposes. I still think even when it existed as Snow White's Scary Adventure, it probably was a must-do because I don't know how old Sarah is, honestly, but I know, not to show my age, this is something we did used to have at Walt Disney World. I remember it. For example, when I took my wife to Disneyland, I wanted her to experience it because she never got to experience Snow White's Scary Adventure. I definitely think it is a must-do for Walt Disney World people. Sleeping Beauty Castle Walkthrough. You get to walk through basically what amounts to some dioramas explaining Sleeping Beauty's story. What do you think about this one?
I say definitely don't skip that one because it is, I believe it's unique to Disneyland, and you can get through it pretty quickly. But it's a really cool experience if you get to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. You get to go inside the castle. Anytime you even get to walk through Cinderella's castle just and see the mosaic at Walt Disney World, I think you have to take that opportunity. Now it is almost always open. But when they used to have the Friendship Fair show and they used to have some of these other experiences that were happening around the castle, it wasn't as easy to walk through that area of Cinderella Castle. Anytime you get to be in these castles, take advantage of it. Much like the Mark Twain Riverboat. I have gone back and forth on this next one over and over again. King Arthur Carousel. Basically, the entire reason that Disneyland exists is because Walt Disney took his daughters to the park. They were on a carousel, and he was sitting and looking at a carousel, and he started to come up with the ideas for Disneyland. Because I know that, I always feel like I have to ride King Arthur Carousel when I am at Disneyland. But not everybody views these parks the way we view them. It's not as ingrained into their lives. For some people, I know this might sound crazy to some of us, it's just a vacation. So, if this is just a vacation for you, do you think King Arthur Carousel is a must ride?
If it is just a vacation, I would say no. I would say you could skip it and go wait in line for something else.
And much like Fantasmic, I don't think this is a must do at Walt Disney World at all.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I've ever even ridden it at Walt Disney World.
It's actually not King Arthur's Carousel at Walt Disney World. It's Prince Charming's, but
Gotcha.
but basically the same concept, and I don't know if it is needed. We're going to move to something that basically doesn't even have a comparable attraction at Walt Disney World, and that's Casey Jr. Circus Train. Sarah, is this a must-do for people?
I don't think so. If you have small kids with you, yes. But if you're there and you're just on vacation, I would say skip it.
We are 100% simpatico here, Sarah. I don't think it is a necessity, and I am going to tell you something that I have not told very many other people. I have never ridden Casey Jr. at Disneyland because I felt that there really wasn't the need for it. Dumbo the Flying Elephant. You know, this is another one of those that's so iconic that you almost feel like, how can you go to Disneyland and not ride it? But also, it's a spoken wheel ride. In your opinion, is it a must-do if you have a limited amount of time at Disneyland?
No, it is not. That you're gonna wait in line forever. It's that one is one of those huge fantasy land rides, and it to me is not worth the wait if you just have that one day and you're trying to get a lot of stuff in.
100% agree. Not needed. Now, I'm going to make a lot of Magic Kingdom people sad right now. So just brace yourself. If you're about my age and you used to go to Magic Kingdom when you were a kid and you remember the good old days, the glory days, back when we had Mr. Toad's Wild Ride on the East Coast, you are going to be upset. You're going to shed a little tear. Sarah, you can't skip Mr. Toad's Wild Ride if you're at Disneyland, am I right?
You cannot skip it. Absolutely not.
The first time I was ever at Disneyland, this was the second ride I had to ride because I had to make sure I did it because I missed it so much from when we had it at Walt Disney World. Listen, I know why it's not at Walt Disney World anymore. I get it. I understand that The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh has an audience. I am very much not in that audience, so I understand. I get it. But having the chance to ride Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is one of the reasons you go to Disneyland for the first time if you only do Walt Disney World vacations. So you can't skip it. It is such a good ride. It's so fun. It's like Disney dirty. Like, it's as blue as you're going to get in a Disney park. It's not dirty, but it's just, you know, like you end up seeing the devil. Like that's not your normal Disney ride, right?
No, and that's the end of the ride. So it's like, if you're missing Snow White's Scary Adventures and the Scary Witch at the end, ride Mr. Toad.
It's so good. It's such a fun ride. You have to experience it. I hope it stays at Disneyland forever. This is so iconic. Peter Pan's Flight always has a long line, an iconic attraction, but I'm going to say, and just looking at Sarah's face as we record this, I think she's going to agree. If you've ridden it at Walt Disney World, you can skip it at Disneyland.
I 100% agree on that.
The Mad Tea Party does exist at Walt Disney World, and it exists at Disneyland. This is one of those things that is iconic. People think of the spinning teacups. If you've done it at Walt Disney World, do you have to do it at Disneyland, Sarah?
I don't think so. I would skip it. I don't know if, how many people are on this boat with me, but I like the one in Walt Disney World better because it's covered and it's a lot bigger. So to me, that's my opinion on it. I never ride the teacups.
I have said this before about the teacups at Magic Kingdom. I will literally be walking past them and not notice that they're there. There's like this weird blockage in my brain where I don't even think about riding it. Like, I will walk right past it like it's a popcorn cart. I don't even, I never check the wait times for it. I never ride it at Walt Disney World. I think it's very iconic at Disneyland, but I think you can stand outside of it and take pictures of it at Disneyland and have just as important an experience. I would say it is very skippable at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World. I don't even consider it skipping it at Walt Disney World because I forget about it. This is the honest truth. The honest truth. The Princess Half Marathon last year, I ran it, and part of the course goes through Magic Kingdom. And I was coming around Tomorrowland, and as you're running, you're just sort of visualizing how the course will be, especially because you kind of know this area well. And I got to the Mad Tea Party, and you had to go around it, and I was like, I wasn't mentally prepared for it because I didn't even remember it was there. I don't know what it is about my brain that does that. But anyway, Alice in Wonderland does not have a counterpart at Walt Disney World. I think it's fair to say you have to do this one, right?
Oh, absolutely. Plus, it's really cool because it's a dark ride that also goes outside. You get a kind of a two-level experience there, which is really fun.
You don't always have the opportunity to make this decision, so take that in mind if you're at Disneyland. But if you had the opportunity to ride this during the day or at night because of that part where it goes outside, what would you choose?
I would say at night. I would ride it at night, kind of like Big Thunder Mountain. I love to ride it at night. But actually, I had a really cool experience on Alice in Wonderland one time when we were there with my mom's friend and her son when he was like 5. And we came out of that door that goes down the leaf trail right as Mickey and Minnie were coming by on the parade. And so we got to see it right as we were coming out. It was so cool. My mom's friend's son was so excited, and it was a really cool experience. So when you go during, you can plan it around times like that. But I think nighttime just gives a cooler experience too, because the teacups right there have the lights, and there's the lights in the garden, and it's really fun.
I agree. If you've never been to Disneyland, you have to do Alice in Wonderland. As a matter of fact, if you go to Disneyland all of the time, why do you keep going back if you're not going to ride Alice in Wonderland? I think it's one of them that you kind of have to do almost every time you're there.
Yeah, exactly. That and Mr. Toad, and they share a space too. So there we go.
Technically, Walt Disney World doesn't have a comparable ride to Matterhorn bobsleds. However, I would say that they kind of do because the track for the Matterhorn at Disneyland is more similar to the track for Space Mountain at Walt Disney World than the track for Space Mountain at Disney World is comparable to Space Mountain at Disneyland, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense.
I still don't think you can skip Matterhorn bobsleds if you're at Disneyland. It's just iconic.
Yeah, I agree. You have to ride Matterhorn. Remember to bring your back brace, uh but definitely ride Matterhorn. If you get a chance, ride on the left side because it is a little faster. According to those of us who have ridden it, if you want a faster ride, go to the left towards Tomorrowland.
That is an awesome tip. Yeah, you can't skip Matterhorn bobsleds. It's one of the classics. Storybook Land canal boats. This is a ride that doesn't have a counterpart at Walt Disney World either. You go around on a boat and you see some set pieces that are made to look like different towns or different locations in Disney animated movies. What do you think, Sarah? Can you skip it?
I would say skip it. It's another one of those longer rides. I mean, unless you're really into like little miniatures and stuff, that's pretty cool. It's fun at night because it does give a little different kind of look. But ultimately, if you are there one day, I would skip it.
My last Disneyland trip before recording this was for 90s Night back in 2019. We got the ticket for 90s night, so we were able to enter at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't remember exactly what time we were able to enter, but we had a limited amount of time to do rides and take part in the 90s activities. We ended up doing this because it had a 5-minute wait, and I'm still kicking myself for wasting the time because we had such limited time in Disneyland that day. It's one of the things that made me think of the topic of this podcast, where if you were just trying to run through and experience as much as you can, would you want to waste time on some of these things? And Storybook Land Canal Boats, I can't even justify it. Like, honestly, if you're there for a week, maybe ride it. But besides that, I don't think it's needed.
No, I agree.
And now we're entering the can of worms portion of Fantasyland, because this is going to be one of those arguments that the purists and the vacationers would get into. It's a Small World. There is a version of It's a Small World at Walt Disney World. A few people will say that the one at Walt Disney World is better. I don't agree with those people. The one at Disneyland, do you think it's a must ride, Sarah?
Ultimately, I would say skip it, but don't skip the clock parade. Because if we in Disneyland have a huge facade that actually brought this up on Twitter a while back, asking people like, do you guys even have this? And on the hour, it does cool stuff. And I would say if you don't want to wait in the big line and waste part of your day waiting in line, just watch the clock parade part and skip the ride. But I'm also torn because the ride is actually pretty good. And I have never ridden the one in Walt Disney World because I had ridden the one in Disneyland and was like, well, I don't want to wait. So
I definitely think the one at Disneyland is better. Getting that out of the way right now. It has characters from Disney movies put into the countries throughout It's a Small World. That was a very controversial decision. However, I think with the exception of the Toy Story characters that look like somebody drew on toilet paper rolls, I think they were all done very, very well, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. This is another one that's classic. It was for the 1964 World's Fair. I think you have to do it if you're at Disneyland. I think it's one of the things that is so iconic. I couldn't see not doing it. It was one of the things that I made sure to do when I was at 90s night, even though I had a very, very limited amount of time. It's too important. This is sort of an extension of Fantasyland. I guess it is considered its own land officially, but I kind of view it as an extension of Fantasyland, and that's Mickey's Toontown. There's basically only one ride here that we're going to discuss today. It does not have a counterpart at Walt Disney World, and I am angry that it doesn't have a counterpart at Walt Disney World. Build this at Disney's Hollywood Studios now. Disney, you cowards. Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. I told you earlier that when I went to Disneyland for the first time, my second ride was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. My first one was Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. Somebody my age cannot skip anything Roger Rabbit themed. Do you think you can skip this one?
No, I don't think you should skip it because I grew up watching that movie as well. I love that movie as a kid. And yeah, it's such a fun ride. And I agree, they should put it in Hollywood Studios.
Originally, back when it was still MGM Studios, there was talk of Roger Rabbit's Hollywood that was going to be its own land. And that would have been the absolute best. Somebody who did not experience the Roger Rabbit phenomenon at Walt Disney World when it was happening just has no idea how big that was. It completely took over the parks for a good 5-year period. Roger Rabbit was in every parade, was in every live show, and then he just disappeared one day.
That's so bizarre. That's awesome that he was in all of that. I mean, I hadn't gone to that when that movie came out. I was pretty young still, so I hadn't gone yet, but that would have been so amazing.
Sarah just called me old. That's okay.
Not
now
old.
We're going to move on to the only land you could quite possibly skip at Disneyland. And that's maybe a little bit mean. But we're going to go to Tomorrowland, and we've already taken a lot of time, so we're probably going to breeze through this one. For the most part, a lot of the things here probably are skippable. But we're going to talk first about Autopia. The version at Walt Disney World is the Tomorrowland Speedway. In my humble opinion, you can skip both of these things. There is no reason for them to even still be in theme parks. Do you agree with me, Sarah?
I 100% agree.
And now I was almost tempted not to even mention this ride because I don't know if it's going to exist anymore, because I just don't see in this post-pandemic world. I'm not saying we're out of the pandemic yet. I'm just saying in a potential post-pandemic world, I don't see something like Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage ever opening again. But I think we're both in agreement there. Skip it.
Definitely skip it, especially if you've been on the counterpart in Epcot. That it's better in Epcot, in my opinion, because you're not smashed in a tin can.
Okay, so you're going to consider the counterpart to Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage, The Seas with Nemo and Friends at Epcot, instead of the defunct 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah.
I think I like The Seas with Nemo and Friends better as well. It's a fun, dark ride instead of getting slammed in with sweaty tourists in a tin can under the water. Star Tours The Adventure continues. This exists at Disney's Hollywood Studios. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Skip it.
Skip it. I am nostalgic for that because my first trip ever to Disneyland is the summer that opened. And so I was 3 and we stood in line forever, but my dad and my uncle are both huge Star Wars fans. So we stood in line and we went on it. And so it's like, it has a special place in my heart, but I would skip it.
I think if you have the time, do it. But if you don't, it's basically the exact same thing that exists at Walt Disney World. And if you've done it dozens of times, don't waste precious Disneyland time.
Agreed.
So Astro Orbiter exists at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World. However, I wouldn't even consider them the same ride. At Walt Disney World, you're elevated, you're really far off the ground. It's a completely different experience. It's still a wheel and spoke ride, but it's the views that you get at Walt Disney World that make it, I don't even think a must-do at Walt Disney World, but much more of a must-do at Disney World than it is at Disneyland, in my opinion. What do you think, Sarah?
I agree. And for some reason, as a kid, I think I remember it being elevated like that in the original Tomorrowland. And then when they revamped it, they put it on the ground. So it's just not the same experience. I would say skip it because the one in Disney World's better.
You are absolutely correct about that, by the way. It did used to be elevated, and then they changed that. One of the few swings and misses by Disney Imagineering. 2 more. These might be contenders for ones that you shouldn't skip at Disneyland, but I'm not 100% sure what you're going to say. Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters. Now, there's Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin in Fantasyland at Magic Kingdom. I am going to say Astro Blasters is better than Space Ranger Spin, but is it better enough to make it a must-do, Sarah?
I've never been on Space Ranger Spin, so I have no idea on that. But I would say it's fun, but if I were there for one day, I would skip it.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I went back and forth on it just because it is different enough. It's better. Mm-hmm. So I want people to see that it could be a better version over at Walt Disney World if they tried a little harder. But I definitely think it's not worth your time. We're going to wrap it up with one of the icons, one of the major attractions at Disneyland, Space Mountain. Space Mountain exists at Walt Disney World, but it is very, very different. What say you, Sarah?
I would say probably, I'm kind of torn. Probably not skip it. I'd probably ride it. I love Space Mountain. I think it's super fun. I love like the whole entrance to the one in Disneyland. I love the whole experience of it. So I would say probably not skip it.
This is what I'm going to say about Space Mountain, and it might be the best advice that you get in this whole podcast if you're somebody who is used to going to Walt Disney World and have a limited amount of time at Disneyland. I would go in and hit Fantasyland first, get a lot of those rides out of the way before the lines get too long, and then sort of move through the left side of the park Frontierland, New Orleans Square, Adventureland, Galaxy's Edge, Critter Country, do all of that stuff. And if I was already running out of time, I wouldn't even enter Tomorrowland at Disneyland.
That's fair.
So if I have enough time, yes, I'm doing Space Mountain at Disneyland. It would be a must-do if I even enter Tomorrowland. But if I don't, I'm not going to regret my time in the park.
That makes sense. I think that's fair. I think I spend more time in the shops in Tomorrowland than anything else.
Yeah, it's just not a place I spend a whole lot of time when I'm there, and it's just really, really easy to skip.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give people who listen to the podcast a little insight into the behind-the-scenes aspect. Sarah asked me, are we doing both Disneyland and Disney's California Adventure? And I said to her, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We'll look at the time. Well, now I'm looking at the time, and I feel stupid for thinking we were ever going to get California Adventure in on this podcast. But that's why Sarah's such a good friend. That's why I love talking to her, because we can just go on for so long about these theme parks. I really enjoy her opinions, and I want to thank you for joining us today. If people want to find you on Twitter, Sarah, how can they do that?
You can find me on Twitter at Sarah with an H, says 84.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me. It was very fun.
This has been episode 19 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Please like, subscribe, and comment to really help out the show. Follow me on social media for blogs, videos, pictures, and live streams. Facebook.com/ear-to-there-Rick. Twitter.com/Rick_ear. Instagram.com/RickEar2there. And Twitter.com/TGTT podcast. For a free, no obligation quote on your next vacation, call me at 727-507-3123 or shoot me an email at rick@eartotheretravel.com. My services are always 100% free to you. Thank you for checking out Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Until next Thursday's episode, have a great week.